I can still hear the sound of my own knuckles splitting against the concrete wall. Not from anger, not from rage, but from a single moment of devastating clarity. I had just spent 6 hours perfecting my physical technique, my body moving like a machine, every strike precise, every movement calculated. But when that wall didn't break, when it should have, when my perfect form met immovable resistance, I realized I had been training only half of myself. The strongest body in the world is powerless when guided by a scattered mind. The fastest hands mean nothing when driven by unfocused thought. In that moment, bleeding and humbled, I discovered the most profound truth of all combat, of all achievement, of all human potential. Your body is merely the vehicle. Your mind is the engine, the navigator, and the fuel all in one. But here's what terrifies most people about this truth. If your mind is truly the weapon, then every limitation you've ever accepted, every excuse you've ever made, every time you've said, I can't, or I'm not capable, you've been voluntarily disarming yourself. You've been walking into every battle of your life with your most powerful weapon locked away, gathering dust, while you wondered why victory felt so impossible. The question isn't whether you have the physical capability to achieve what you want. The question is whether you have the mental discipline to unlock the body you already possess. I want you to think about something right now. When was the last time you felt truly powerful? Not artificially pumped up by caffeine or adrenaline, but genuinely, deeply powerful. I'm willing to bet it wasn't when your body was at its peak condition. I'm willing to bet it was when your mind was crystal clear, when your purpose was laser focused, when every thought in your head was aligned toward a single outcome. That's not coincidence. That's the fundamental law of human performance that most people never discover. Let me take you back to a night in Oakland, 1967. I had been invited to demonstrate my techniques at a local martial arts gathering. The room was filled with traditional masters, each confident in their established styles, each certain that what they had learned was the ultimate truth. I walked onto that floor, not with my strongest punch or my fastest kick, but with something far more dangerous. I walked in with a mind so sharp, so clear, so completely present that every movement became inevitable. What happened next wasn't just a physical demonstration. It was a revelation that would change how I understood power itself. I didn't overpower my opponents that night. I didn't outmuscle them or outspeed them. Instead, I outthought them. Every strike they attempted, I had already seen in their posture, in their breathing, in the subtle tension in their shoulders. My body responded not because I had trained it to be faster, but because my mind had been trained to see what others missed. In those moments, my body became an extension of pure thought, and pure thought, when properly focused, is the most lethal weapon in existence. But here's where most people get lost. They think mental sharpness means thinking more, analyzing more, strategizing more. They fill their heads with techniques and theories and plans until their minds become cluttered storage rooms instead of precision instruments. The sharp mind isn't the busy mind. The sharp mind is the still mind, the focused mind, the mind that can cut through confusion like a blade through silk. When I speak of mental sharpness, I'm talking about something far more profound than intelligence or knowledge. I'm talking about the ability to see reality without the distortion of your own fears, expectations, and assumptions. Watch a cat stalking its prey. Notice how every muscle in its body is relaxed until the exact moment of action. Notice how its mind isn't scattered across 100 different thoughts, but focused on one singular purpose. That cat's body becomes deadly not because of its physical strength, but because of its mental clarity. The same principle applies to every area of human achievement. Your body will only be as powerful as your mind is sharp, as focused, as present in the moment of action. I remember the first time I truly understood this connection. I was training with my wooden dummy, practicing the same combination I had practiced thousands of times before. But this particular day, something was different. My mind wasn't just going through the motions. It was completely absorbed in the present moment, aware of every sensation, every breath, every micro movement. When I struck that dummy, the power that came through was unlike anything I had experienced before. It wasn't that my muscles had suddenly grown stronger. It was that my mind had finally learned to coordinate every fiber of my being toward a single purpose. That's when I realize that most people are fighting their own bodies. Their minds are saying one thing while their muscles are doing another. Yeah. Their thoughts are scattered in the past and future while their bodies are stuck trying to perform in the present. It's like trying to drive a car while someone else controls the steering wheel. So, the engine might be powerful, but without unified direction, that power becomes wasted energy, even dangerous energy. Think about your own life right now. How often do you find yourself physically present, but mentally absent? How often do you go through the motions of exercise, of work, of relationships, while your mind is somewhere else entirely? Every moment of mental distraction is a moment of physical inefficiency. Every scattered thought is leaked power, Every worried mind is a weakened body, regardless of how many hours you've spent in the gym. The ancient masters knew this secret. They understood that true power comes not from building bigger muscles, but from sharpening mental focus to a razor's edge. A smaller warrior with complete mental clarity will defeat a larger warrior with a scattered mind every time. Not through magic, not through mystical energy, but through the simple principle that focused intention multiplies physical capability exponentially. But let me warn you about something. In our modern world, we have been conditioned to see the mind and body as separate entities. We train our bodies in gyms and our minds in classrooms as if they were unrelated machines. This artificial separation is the source of most human frustration and limitation. Your mind and body are not two different things working together. They are one unified system, and that system is only as strong as its weakest component. I've seen people with incredible physical conditioning crumble under pressure because their minds weren't trained for the moment. I've seen others with modest physical abilities achieve extraordinary things because their mental clarity was unshakable. The difference wasn't in their bodies. The difference was in their understanding of how to weaponize their mind. Now, let me share with you the 3 levels of mental sharpness that transform ordinary bodies into extraordinary weapons. These aren't theoretical concepts. These are practical realities I discovered through years of training, teaching and testing the limits of human potential. The first level is awareness. Most people sleepwalk through their physical experiences. They lift weights while thinking about work. They run while their minds replay yesterday's conversations. They move their bodies while their consciousness is somewhere else entirely. True awareness means being completely present in your physical experience. It means feeling every muscle fiber, sensing every breath, being intimately connected with what your body is actually doing in this moment. When you achieve this level of awareness, you'll be shocked at how much more powerful your movements become. Not because your body changed, but because your mind finally showed up to the party. The second level is intention. This goes beyond just being aware of what you're doing. This is about infusing every movement with clear, focused purpose. When I throw a punch, I'm not just moving my arm through space. I'm channeling my entire being through that movement. Every thought, every breath, every ounce of my attention is focused on that single action. This isn't visualization or positive thinking. This is the complete alignment of mental energy with physical action. When you master this level, your body becomes capable of things that seem to defy its physical limitations. The third level is what I call mental emptiness. But don't mistake this for blankness or passivity. Mental emptiness is the absence of interference. It's when your mind becomes so clear, so focused, that there's no internal conflict, no hesitation, no doubt clouding your actions. Your body responds instantly to your will because there's nothing in your mind creating resistance or delay. This is the level where ordinary people begin to display what others call superhuman ability. But there's nothing supernatural about it. It's simply what happens when a sharp mind gains complete control over a willing body. But I want to tell you about the night I discovered the power of mental emptiness. I was sparring with one of my most advanced students, someone whose physical capabilities were actually superior to mine in many ways. Stronger. By all physical measurements, he should have dominated that session. But something remarkable happened. My mind became so completely clear, so utterly present, that I began to move without thinking, to respond without delay, to act without hesitation. My body became an extension of pure awareness. Every technique flowed seamlessly into the next, not because I had planned it, but because my mind was sharp enough to see and respond to the constantly changing reality of combat. That night, I understood that the greatest weapon isn't strength or speed. It's the ability to be completely present and responsive in the moment of action. But here's what I discovered about developing this mental sharpness. You can't just think your way to it. You can't meditate your way to it. You can't read your way to it. You can't read your way to it. Mental sharpness is developed the same way physical strength is developed through progressive, deliberate practice under increasingly challenging conditions. Just as you gradually increase the weight to build muscle, you must gradually increase mental challenges to build mental clarity. Let me give you a practical example that will change how you approach any physical activity. The next time you exercise, whether it's lifting weights, running, or even just walking, I want you to try something. Before you begin, spend 1 minute in complete silence, focusing only on your breathing. Not thinking about your workout plan, not worrying about your form, just breathing. Then, as you begin your first movement, maintain that same level of mental focus. Don't let your mind wander to what you're going to do next. Keep it locked on what you're doing right now. Feel the weight, sense the resistance, experience the movement as if your life depended on your complete attention. You'll immediately notice that your body responds differently. Your movements become more fluid, more powerful, more efficient. That's not placebo effect. That's the direct result of a sharp mind directing a willing body. But most people resist this level of mental engagement because it requires them to give up their mental comfort zones. It's easier to let your mind wander, to go through the motions, to operate on autopilot. And mental sharpness demands that you show up completely for your own life, and that level of presence can be uncomfortable for minds that have grown accustomed to distraction and scattered attention. I remember working with an actor who was preparing for a physically demanding role. He had been training for months, building muscle, learning choreography, developing the external appearance of a warrior. But when it came time to film the fight scenes, something was missing. His movements looked right, but they lacked authentic power. They were technically correct, but emotionally empty. I told him, "Your body knows what to do, but your mind isn't committed to doing it." We spent the next week not on physical training, but on mental training, learning to focus his intention, to be completely present in each movement, to infuse his actions with genuine purpose. When he returned to filming, the difference was remarkable. The same body, the same techniques. But now they carried real power because they were driven by a sharp, focused mind. This is why traditional martial arts always emphasized meditation alongside physical training. The masters understood that a strong body guided by a weak mind is like a sports car driven by someone who's blindfolded. All that potential power becomes meaningless without clear direction and control. But a disciplined mind can make even a modest body capable of extraordinary things. Think about the greatest athletes you've ever watched. What separated them from their competitors wasn't usually physical superiority. It was mental clarity under pressure. The ability to maintain focus when everything was on the line. The capacity to execute with precision when their bodies were exhausted and their opponents were desperate. That's mental sharpness translated into physical dominance. Now, I want to address something that might be troubling you right now. You might be thinking, this sounds like a lot of work. I just want to get stronger, faster, more capable. Why do I need to train my mind too? Here's why this question reveals the very thinking that's been limiting you. You're still seeing mind and body as separate entities that require separate training. But they're not separate. Every time you've ever achieved anything physical, your mind was already involved. The question isn't whether to train your mind. The question is whether to train it consciously and deliberately, or to leave it operating on whatever random programming it picked up along the way. Let me share with you something I learned from my own mistakes. Early in my training, I believed that if I just practiced enough, if I just repeated the movements enough times, my body would eventually become powerful enough to overcome any obstacle. I spent countless hours building physical strength, increasing flexibility, perfecting technique. Ting-ting technique. But I kept running into walls that pure physical training couldn't break through. It wasn't until I began to understand the role of mental discipline that those walls began to crumble. The truth is, your body is already capable of far more than you realize. The limitations you experience aren't usually physical limitations. They're mental limitations that manifest as physical restrictions. Your body can generate more power, move with more speed, endure more stress than you've ever demanded of it. But that potential remains locked away because your mind hasn't been trained to access it. Here's a simple experiment that will prove this to yourself. Stand up right now and do a single push-up. Pay attention to how it feels, how much effort it requires, how strong or weak you feel during the movement. Now, sit back down and spend 2 minutes doing nothing but breathing deeply and focusing your mind on the idea of power flowing through your body. Don't think about technique or form. Just focus on the concept of effortless strength. Then stand up and do another push-up. This time with your mind completely focused on the movement, completely present in the action. Feel the difference. That difference isn't in your body. It's in your mind's engagement with your body. This brings me to one of the most misunderstood aspects of physical training. People think that building strength means making your muscles bigger. But true strength, the kind that can transform your life, comes from the mind's ability to coordinate and direct all available physical resources toward a specific outcome. A smaller person with complete mental coordination will always be more powerful than a larger person with scattered mental energy. I once trained with a man who weighed barely 130 pounds, but he could generate more power in a single movement than men twice his size. His secret wasn't hidden technique or supernatural ability. His secret was that his mind had been trained to unify every aspect of his being in the moment of action. When he moved, there was no internal conflict, no hesitation, no part of him holding back. His entire being flowed in the same direction, and that unity created power that seemed to defy his physical limitations. This is what I mean when I say your body is a weapon when your mind is sharp. It's not about turning your body into something it is. It's about using your mind to unlock what your body already is. Most people go through life using a fraction of their physical potential because their minds haven't been trained to access the full capacity that's already there. But developing this kind of mental sharpness requires you to change how you think about training itself. Most people approach physical development as if they were programming a machine. Do this many repetitions, lift this much weight, run this distance, and the machine will improve. But you're not a machine. You're a conscious being with unlimited potential that can only be accessed through conscious direction. Every movement you make, from the most intense workout to the simplest daily activity, is an opportunity to practice mental sharpness, mental sharpness. Every moment of physical activity is a chance to train your mind to be more present, more focused, more unified with your body's actions. But this requires you to give up the luxury of mental autopilot. It requires you to show up completely for your own physical experience. Let me teach you a practice that will immediately begin to sharpen your mental weapon. I call it the one breath technique. Choose any physical activity, something as simple as picking up a glass of water. Before you begin the movement, take one deep breath and use that breath to gather your complete attention. As you exhale, perform the movement with your entire being focused on that single action. Don't think about what comes next. Don't let your mind wander to other things. For the duration of that one movement, let your mind be as sharp and focused as a laser beam. Practice this with progressively more challenging activities until you can maintain that level of mental focus during intense physical effort. You begin to understand that every moment of weakness, every failure to perform at your potential, every time you felt powerless was really a moment when your mental weapon was dull. But this discomfort is also liberation. Because if your limitations are mental rather than physical, they can be overcome through mental training. If your power comes from mental sharpness rather than genetic gifts, it can be developed through conscious practice. If your body's capability is determined by your mind's clarity, then improving your life becomes a matter of sharpening your focus rather than hoping for better circumstances. Now, let me give you the most practical advice I can offer. Start treating every physical activity as an opportunity to practice mental sharpness. When you walk, be completely present in the act of walking. When you exercise, focus your entire being on each movement. When you work with your hands, let your mind be as engaged as your fingers. This isn't about becoming obsessive or losing the ability to relax. This is about training your mind to be capable of complete focus when you need it most. The masters of old had a saying, "The mind is everything. What you think, you become." But they weren't talking about positive thinking or wishful visualization. They were talking about the practical reality, that your body will only express the level of power that your mind is capable of directing. Train your mind to be sharp, focused, and present, and your body will become a weapon of unlimited potential. Leave your mind scattered, distracted, and lazy, and your evil body will reflect that weakness, no matter how many hours you spend in physical training. Remember this above all. You are not trying to become something you are not. You are learning to be fully what you already are. Your body already contains incredible power. Your mind already possesses remarkable clarity. The work isn't to create these capacities. The work is to remove the mental habits that prevent you from accessing what you already possess. Your body is a weapon when your mind is sharp. Not because sharpness makes you dangerous to others, but because it makes you capable of cutting through every limitation that has kept you from expressing your true potential. The question isn't whether you have what it takes. The question is whether you're willing to train your mind to be sharp enough to direct what you already have. Every master who has ever achieved extraordinary things understood this principle. Every breakthrough in human performance has come from someone who learned to coordinate their mental and physical resources completely. Every moment of true power you've ever experienced has been a glimpse of what becomes possible when your mind is sharp enough to fully direct your body's potential. The training begins now, not when you feel ready, not when circumstances are perfect, not when you have more time or energy or motivation. Right now, in this moment, with whatever physical activity you engage in next, make your mind sharp, make your focus complete, make your presence total. Your body is waiting for your mental weapon to guide it toward the extraordinary performance it has always been capable of delivering. Be sharp, my friend. Be present. Be unified. Your weapon is ready. The only question is whether your mind is sharp enough to wield it.